Hi, and welcome to Curbside Chat. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. This vodcast is brought to you by AIA Canada and our fabulous sponsors. It's an opportunity to speak to our experts on the ground to find out what's happening in this ever-changing auto care sector. Today, we're talking about mentorship and growth. Many of our conversations in this series surround the escalating need for finding talented workers as this sector continues to grow. It's an ongoing challenge for most. But today we're going to address an equally important part of the process. How do you inspire your colleagues as well as your new hires? And how do you put in place the building blocks for continued growth? My guests today bring unique perspectives to the conversation as well as a lot of great insights. Trevor Jones is the Vice President of Sales at Mevotech, and Stephanie Cooney-Mann is General Manager with UAP. Welcome everyone to Curbside Chat.
Thank you. Welcome to be here.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is going to be fun. Trevor, the auto care landscape is changing quickly in Canada. In recent years, we spoke earlier and you mentioned entities like LKQ and GPC. Sorry, a lot of acronyms going on here, making moves, which I'll ask you to explain. Is growth through acquisition and consolidation the future of this sector?
Yeah, well, I would say it's going to get more and more prevalent as we anticipate that consolidation is going to speed up in Canada with the more entry of all the big players from O'Reilly to LKQ and GPC. And actually, I was with a great jobber group that has multiple stores earlier today, and we're actually talking about that. And he brought up the need for, and he didn't use the word mentoring, but it's exactly what he was talking about. In order to retain his good talent, he has to think about their career path and how he can retain them over time. And he was speaking about mentorship without really using those words.
I know, Stephanie, you'll use those words because we've used them a bunch of times when we've been talking. It also means that the workers that are required are changing. Is the industry attractive enough to a new kind of worker? Is this new ground?
I think we're definitely entering new ground. It's a new generation that's in the workforce right now, and they're all about their own personal growth, about that mentorship and looking for that sponsorship as well.
Trevor, how do you see technology being embraced? How important is it for the new generation to not just be great at using the new tech, but also companies in the workplace instituting it and welcoming it? Where's the match in the middle?
Well, whether we like it or not, it's coming. Right, and it's coming at a faster pace. So, and I know we spoke briefly, Lorraine, before at a previous conversation about generations within the same workspace, and that's where that's playing out today, where some of the older generation isn't as attuned to the technology that's coming, and the younger people entering the industry are bringing it with them and demanding more of it. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there that we have to overcome.
So there's some bridge work to be done. Stephanie, you're a pro at mentoring and coaching. How important is it for workplaces to adapt new workers to the role while also figuring out how to bridge them to that previous staff?
I think the mentorship piece is essential in today's society. I think with the desire to want to grow within the organization, you need to teach them their fundamentals of the role that they're currently in. But then I also think you need to take them under your wing. And it doesn't need to necessarily be a super formal mentorship, but I do think it's essential in having that relationship, whether it is with someone who's at the same level you are, could be somebody who's been in the organization a long time. But I just think you need to establish that relationship with somebody who has that foundation within the auto care sector.
Do you think companies have to tap individuals to fill that role, or is it more of a workplace kind of vibe that is put in place for everybody?
I think it's a little bit of an evolution. I think there are some people who naturally like to be a mentor to people within the industry because they're just so passionate about it. And I know that, people like Trevor and myself, we're super excited about new generations and new people coming into this industry. But I don't necessarily think that everyone feels that they have the skill set to be a mentor. But I think mentorship just has a lot to do about sharing your experience, being a sounding board for people, and make sure that they feel safe to come to you, whether it's with an issue, a question, whatever it may be, just creating that environment for them.
Trevor, along with maybe age differences, and we spoke earlier about this, there's cultural and regional differences. This industry is changing in a lot of ways all at once, and we have workers coming from around the world. How can companies best set themselves up to understand and accept and motivate people who perhaps don't come from the same backgrounds that they do or have different concerns coming in?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And what I've kind of noticed in my conversations out in the field is part of the challenge is actually larger on the generational front versus the cultural front. And that's what I've been seeing most recently. But it all starts with respect. Everything that you do as an organization has to be done with respect because we all come with different backgrounds, different knowledge levels, different skill sets. But it doesn't mean one skill set is more important than another. And one thing Stephanie touched on really quickly there is she mentioned formal mentorship. I think formal mentorship is the weaker of the two, being informal and formal. In a previous organization I worked in, we tried to set up a formal in parallel with an informal mentorship program, and the formal quickly died off, right? People felt it was a big commitment. I'm too busy. I can't do that. But informal takes place between everybody, from team member to team member, leader to employee, employee to leader, older generation, younger generation, client to vendor. It's everybody has different skill sets to offer. And a lot of it takes place in the hallways, right? That informal mentorship. And it's really, mentorship is really changing somebody's viewpoint from a personal perception to more of a perspective, right? Stepping back and looking at things a different way to get beyond a challenge point, right? So informal in my experience it's way more beneficial than a formal program.
We're seeing institutional shifts, not just,
Mm-hmm.
do this on Monday and this on Wednesday after work kind of thing. We want it different. Stephanie, when we talk about boomers, because I apparently am one, um, there's bumps, and no matter what we call the generations, there are definite dividing lines. There's things that they have in common, but there's absolute generational lines. And now with the consolidation and buying up of smaller companies that may have been family run, you've got one group that came into it with one perspective, and now we're bringing in other groups. How do we smooth those waters? How do we use these coaching techniques to maybe have to straddle someone who's 65 and aging out and 25 and coming in? How do we make that transparent and comfortable for everybody?
I think it's always about keeping the lines of communication open. I think the more that we have these discussions, bring them to the forefront and not try to hide from them and just be really honest with what we're looking for. Because obviously, that 65-year-old is looking for something very different than what a 25-year-old is coming into the workforce with. And it's just making sure that we can adapt our strategies, adapt the way that we do things, just to make sure that they're feeling welcome, that they're feeling that there is a spot for them within the organization.
Trevor, how do you picture when a company's trying to grow, when you're bringing in other companies and you're folding everybody into a big tent, let's say, how important is it to be transparent from the new people coming in to the existing people to your colleagues to the new workers coming in? How important is it for there to be an openness?
Yeah, communication is key. Transparency is also key, but you have to have a responsible transparency. You can't overshare. There's certain things that should not be shared from a personal privacy perspective, all that. I think everyone understands that. But as far as whether you're a shop, whether you're a jobber store or a vendor or in the office, on the floor, you have to understand what the goal of the organization is, right? And if you understand what that goal is and you understand how your team advances towards that goal, it kind of brings everybody together and it bridges a lot of divides because it identifies that we're all working to the same goal and this is my part in it. So as long as people understand that, a lot of the noise goes away.
Stephanie, I want to come to you for some messaging tips. You try and use a lot of different media or outlets to keep people in touch with each other within the organization, maybe bring new information in. What are some good ways that a company can reach out and find the people they need and keep the ones they have and keep them talking to each other?
I think, especially with today's society, with the way social media works, I think LinkedIn is a phenomenal platform for organizations to reach out to different people, to let them know what they're doing within the organization. And obviously, just like Trevor said, there's obviously some things that we need to keep a little bit more private, but I definitely think showing that there is formal mentorship in an organization, the progression of people who work within an organization, showing somebody's career path. And I'm finding that this newer generation looks up to that and says, that could be me. How do I get there? How do I get there faster? And showing that to them through those platforms are fantastic. But I also think it's equally important to do that internally within an organization as well, whatever type of platform that you have, whether it's fireside chats within your organization, whether it's informal little huddles around, the water cooler, whatever that could be. I think it's super important that we're just sharing that there's opportunity within this industry, sharing that there is very rewarding careers within this industry. And you can even bring in the DEI piece into this as well. It's not just an industry for men. It's an industry for women as well, who have had very, very rewarding careers, and showing that they're excelling and that they're growing within this industry as well. So I think it's just all about sharing and just being proud of working for this industry. This industry was very vibrant throughout COVID. It weathered that storm very, very well. Not a lot of industries can say that. So I think it's super important to know how important this industry is just for our world in general. So I think the more that you can share, I think the more people will get excited about this industry.
I like that you spoke to the inclusion of more females. I've been in this industry for 20 years. I've seen the biggest shift in the last 5, definitely 5 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking with people like both of you, I'm seeing that as well. We've seen DEI become a bad word in some sectors. In the auto care center, I've seen it become the biggest deal going. Everyone is addressing it and speaking to it. It's such a positive thing. So I'm really glad to have you bring that up. Trevor, tell me some women's success stories. You go from putting together, individual shops to great big, amassments of these people. Where are the women shining, and are they coming from different industries?
You know what? I would say it's changing fast. When I watch all the AIA Canada conventions, talks, hosting different things, there is a lot of women shop owners that are taking the front stage, right? Which is fantastic because that's visible. Other people say that, hey, I can do that. It just encourages more people in, which is fantastic. In our organization, as an example, we do what we call this Unstoppable thing first. So for all the female employees, Stephanie, I think you came and you participated in one of those. So there's a real encouragement to build a mentorship program for women specifically in this historically dominated male industry, right? So it's just kind of creating those avenues to make people more comfortable to say, hey, I can do that. I want to pursue that. I see a career path. I see a trajectory that can apply to me. So it's just making sure that's visible for everybody.
Stephanie, what was your experience with that?
I absolutely had a wonderful time. We went to the Big Michael art collection just here in Kleinburg in the GTA, and I met some phenomenal women in the industry. And it was great to connect with someone outside of my normal day to day, and hearing some of the additional success stories with the panel that I was on. And that was a couple of years ago now, but that was absolutely a great time. It was a great event that was put together, and it just reinforces everything that we're trying to do from a DEI perspective, and just sharing how this industry can fulfill you in so many ways that you may not necessarily think. I know that a lot of my girlfriends come up to me and they're like, are you crazy for working in this automotive industry? And I'm like, you're crazy because you're not in this industry. Like, I absolutely love it.
I think we might be in the middle of some of the biggest change when we talk about different kinds of people coming in. We talk about DEI, we talk about scouring the world for workers, and we're also talking about such rapidly changing technology. How do you mesh all those things together successfully? I'm throwing this out to both of you, but there's a lot of moving pieces, and I think they're moving faster than ever. What do you tell somebody who's trying to herd all the cats? What do you tell them when they're dealing with everything that's important right now, and it's all just as important as the other thing? Any tips or clues for this?
Well, I don't mind jumping in first, Stephanie, if that's okay. A lot of people in the industry who I've met, they know I'm new to the industry, which I can't say much any longer. I'm 4 years in now. But I still get the question, hey, why'd you come here? And do you like it? Or do you think you'll leave the industry? My first response is I should have come 10 years earlier, right? It's a phenomenal industry, great people, everyone's down to earth, and it's people selling to people, right? People working with people with very few egos in the industry is from my perspective. And how do we encourage more people to come into the industry? Because it does have that, before I came in there, it has that kind of old school automotive projecting. I'm projecting that kind of persona onto it before I knew it. And a lot of people aren't in the industry do the same thing. But it is one of the fastest changing industries because we're one of the last to change. We haven't been disrupted yet. We're going through that now. So it's very, very dynamic from all kinds of angles, like we've talked today, from technology to personnel, cultures, age groups, you name it, it's changing. So it's very, very dynamic. So one thing to encourage people to come in when we find the right candidate, and that's important. You got to find the right candidate, someone who wants to learn, somebody who wants to grow, a little bit ambitious, which is no different from any other industry. But you have to show them a path, right? They don't want to come in and only end at this position. They want to see a career path to the end of their career, so to speak. And we have to apply the new demands on the way people want to live and how they can do that in this industry, because it's not the same as it was in previous generations.
Stephanie, sorry, I got to take a break. I just lost my whole train of thought there. I was listening to Trevor. Sorry. What I want to ask you. Oh man, 1 second. I'm gonna cough now. Excuse me. Okay. Sorry about that. One thing I'd like to talk to both of you about is something you brought up in our previous discussions, which is succession. And as great a show as that was on TV and so fascinating in, the wild world of all those crazy Hollywood people, in this industry, what Trevor just touched on, which was historically what we think of this industry, what we think of the auto care sector with independent mechanics, and that is changing rapidly, which you've both also noted. But when it comes to succession, the way we keep this going forward, what are the jewels that you pull out? How do you tell people to keep something going forward? Maybe it's a family business. Maybe they're not sure what to, how to go about this. We're watching a lot of them getting, bought up, and they get access to better resources, better supplies, better machinery, things like that. So how do you have that discussion with, let's start with some older people. How do you encourage them to move along? How do you get them to move up as well as out?
I think for me, when you're talking about the older generation, I think it's really showing them the path. I think a lot of that generation did a lot of things intuitively. They, were entrepreneurs at heart and kind of just went and did what they needed to do. I think now people want to see the different options that they have. If they go down street ABC, this is what your potential or what your opportunities are. If you go down street 123, here's a different opportunity, a different way to get to the end of your career, and a couple of different options for you. So I think it's just about illustrating to them the what if you were to do something, what that could mean for you, for your family, for your work-life balance. Because, not everybody wants to work in a shop. Not everybody wants to work, at a supplier or at a parts store. But there's so many different avenues to be working within this industry, and there's so many different ways that you can get to where you want to get to. It's just understanding what's available to you.
Trevor, is there a way to defend your independence? Is there a way to keep being independent while you're part of something bigger?
It's a challenge for sure. I think if you were to look back, say 2 years ago, there was a real vacancy in succession planning in Canada, in the Canadian market. There wasn't a lot of options for shop owners or for job or store owners. Flash forward to today, that's changing fast with a lot of the big players coming in and the consolidation. So for somebody who's at the end of their career and they're an owner of a shop or a store, there's more options for them. but this is where mentorship or even coaching, whatever you want to call it, is probably really important for them, because most of these people have probably not sold a business before, or exited, or did an earn out with their employees. There's all kinds of ways you can retain connection to your lifelong work if that's your goal. Or there's ways, like Stephanie said, you can sell and go do the next stage of your life and not look back, right? There is different ways to do it. And no way is exactly the same as somebody else doing it. So it's a real important stage if you're selling your business now, to get some help, get some coaching, because you're only going to do it once.
Where can they go for that coaching? Where can they, if I'm watching this and I have a small shop and I'm like, I am really interested in finding out what my options might be and what might work for me, and because everyone's different. So Stephanie, where do people start looking for answers like that?
Just within UAP, we have a department that focuses solely on that in the business development area. Whether it is you're looking to sell your shop, whether it is you're looking to partner with someone for your shop, or just kind of get the ideas of what's available to you. There's a lot of different avenues and a lot of different coaches within the industry that can help you get to where you need to get to and explore some of those options. Maybe it's, you want to hand your business over to your family, to, your children or your grandchildren, depending on what stage you are in your life. There's a lot of options available there for you. And there's a lot of people who have been through it, who will share those experiences with you, who will tell you the do's and don'ts of what to do within this industry as well. And as Trevor said earlier, we're in such a dynamic phase in this industry. And I've been in the automotive industry, just like you, Lorraine, for almost 20 years. And I've never seen things change so fast as they have within the last 5 years. Like, it's incredible how fast it's changing, but it's also exciting to see that change that's happening within this industry, with, some of that boomer generation adapting to some of the changes, and some of them saying, you know what, that's not for me. It's time for me to sell my business. And that's okay. Either option are both fantastic. It's just what's right for you.
Trevor, you were smiling when Stephanie was talking about generational hand downs and how to make that work. What did that remind you of? There was something there.
Well, everyone's probably heard a horror story or two about family transitions. But as far as going to get help, there's a lot of people in this industry that have sold a business, right? I'm sure, 6 degrees of separation, everybody has access to that one way or another. But I would go speak to your accountant. There's a thousand ways to Sunday to structure a sale. And like Stephanie said, something that's right for you may not be right for the next person. But if you want to stay connected to your business, maybe you do an earn out and you stay on as an advisor to the new owners, right? And then you're connected as long as you want to be connected. And I'm sure the new owners, if you're doing an owner, like a transition from that perspective, they would probably really appreciate having you stay on as an advisor, as a mentor. So there's all different ways to do it.
I think that'd be more comfortable for customers as well, and consumers. We're talking a lot about one side of this equation, but for people on the other side of the equation, there's a good bond there that's been established. So it's a good idea to protect that as you move along to the next phase. Yeah.
Exactly. There's a lot of continuity, which I think we should touch on as well, the continuity within the organization as well, not just the sale of an organization, but transferring from people retiring out of an organization. There's also that transition and succession planning that's needed.
Do you have an example of what works for that? What kind of continuity do you want to see when someone comes in?
So I always joke with my team, if you're hiring somebody, hire your replacement, right? And it's a bit tongue in cheek, but it basically trying to change their mindset. Go find a person that could eventually learn to do your job, because that it changes the manager's mindset that, okay, I got to look after these people. I got to create a career path, and I got to get them ready for their next job, not just the one I'm hiring for today. So it just helps to change that mindset and have that mentorship throughout the whole day-to-day activities of the organization. And if you can do that, right, if you hire someone today for a job and 3-4 years down the road, they're taking your job, they know all the clients, they have all the relationships, so the continuity and the succession sticks.
I think this would also speak to the transparency that's needed. And this is one area where should be open. And I like that idea. Hire your replacement. I'm not going to hire my replacement anytime soon, but I really like the idea of you're going to pick someone really good because you're going to think you're great. I'd like to thank my guests, Trevor Jones and Stephanie Cooney-Mann, for a spirited discussion about the importance of mentorship as companies accelerate their growth. I'm Lorraine Sommerfeld, and we'll see you next time on Curbside Chat. Thanks, everybody.